You know what, guys? I haven't had a podcast in about a month. I haven't done anything because I have been in school learning to fly a new aircraft. So my mind and focus has been totally on that mission in my new life here, flying the 787, which is a really cool airplane. But something that reminded me, I was in the Sims and we were talking about the old days, 727s and whatnot. And I remember flying an empty airplane from Philadelphia back to Dallas, and the FO turned around to me and said, "Hey, Taco, what airplane did you fly in the Marine Corps?" And I go, "KC-130." He said, he pointed at the speed, and we were doing, I think we were empty. We are doing something like Mach 88. And he goes, "That's the fastest you've ever been." And I go, "Actually, I've been the speed of sound." He's like, "Not in the C-130." I go, "Yeah, true. Not in the C-130. I was in the back of an F-4 Phantom." He's like, "Marine Corps didn't have F-4s in the 90s." And I go, "Nope. It was a civilian owned F-4 Phantom that we did missile work with. And we got to fly in the back." So I figured I would tell you the very quick journey of this story. And like Paul Harvey, got to wait till the very end because the end is actually kind of cool and just a neat story. So picture back in December of 1992, probably around December 15th timeframe. This mission pops up, this frag, last minute frag. All of our C-130s, we have an East Coast C-130 squadron, which I was a part of, Otis VMGR 252. And then the West Coast, the Raiders 352, they got called out to Somalia to go handle what was going on down there with Somalia. And if you remember that, the Marines did the amphibious landing on the beach and the whole 9 yards with CNN sitting behind the sand dunes. So the C-130 unit got tasked over there. Well, they had a mission in Hawaii to refuel these two F-4 Phantoms. And if you guys know what the F-4 is, incredible workhorse from the Air Force, Navy, and Marines back in the 60s, 70s, up to probably late 70s, early 80s. The F-4 is equipped with two J79 engines that are just incredible, a lot of raw power. The beauty of it was, since those guys had to go to Somalia, they tasked our squadron with providing a crew and a Herc to go to, of all places, Hawaii for about a week. And then we do the refueling. Well, none of the married guys wanted to go on this trip. Why? Right before Christmas. And let's be honest, a 1962 F model KC-130 was notorious for breaking down. And sometimes it's to your advantage. You'd be broken down in some really, really fabulous places. But for a married guy, they didn't want to go. So a choice trip like this fell upon an entire load of single guys. So we flew over to Hawaii, and the first day, we had a couple days off, and then we had to meet the crew on, I remember, Sunday. And it was these two grizzled old Air Force colonels with thousands of hours of combat time in Vietnam. And at the brief, we were doing the whole brief on. We had as a young FOs, we had to brief the crews on the refueling, and then they would brief the overall mission that we were doing. So what it was the USS Shiloh CG Aegis class cruiser was out there in Barking Sands missile range. We had two F-4s that would take off from Barber's Point, climb up to 25,000. We would put the hoses out and refuel the two jets. The jets would climb up to, I think the profile was supposed to be 50,000 feet on opposite headings. And then they would launch this big drone, and the drone would climb up to 80,000 feet and then come back down at some ridiculous speed, like Mach 8, Mach 9, towards the cruiser. And the cruiser would shoot counter battery missiles to defeat this big drone to simulate an attack on the ship. And they had a Learjet flying around as well that was doing telemetry and taking photographs and whatnot. And I guess they had self-destruct buttons if the thing made it through whatever layer of defense they had. So On Tuesday, our job was to refuel these guys Tuesday and Thursday. I was a junior pilot as a first lieutenant on the trip, and we had another guy who was a captain, and the AC, Paul Gomez, was a captain. The other captain, Larry, we called him Harry Larry. We'll just go with that. So we did this, and I lost, so I had to fly on Tuesday. But what's funny is at the brief when we got done, I walked up to the pilot, and his name was Dick Lawyer. And I said, "Hey, Dick." Mitch Bell called me Taco, and he goes, "Hey, call me Dick. Just remember, all lawyers are dicks except for me." I thought, okay, I can remember that. And I said, "Hey, the answer is no unless you ask. So I got a question. Is there a chance that I could get a ride in the back seat of your jet?" And he goes, "What? Nah, I don't think so. I mean, here it is." And you can look at this F-4. It has N number on the back because it's an experimental, and that was actually me in the back seat taking this photograph. They had probes welded on the side of the aircraft, and there's a good shot of Mike Aldridge. He was a lance corporal at the time. The welded probe going all the way back to the refueling, where normally a KC-10 or um, a 135 could refuel these guys. They had the drogue permanently welded to the side of the aircraft, and they could refuel off Air Force KC-10s with a basket or Marine KC-130. The airplane that I flew, well, let me get back to that. So we go up, and he says, "No, I don't think insurance. I don't think we could put you in the back." I'm like, "Okay, but I got all my seat quals, so if there's a chance, I would love a ride in the back of an F-4 Phantom. Who wouldn't, right?" And he says, "Let me think about it." Well, what happened was we go up and we take off and we go out to Barking Sands and we give these guys gas. Well, that blue F-4 is the one that Dick flew in, and Duke was in the other one. Let's just say that Duke was new, I think, to the company, and he hadn't practiced a lot of aerial refueling, so he wasn't quite as proficient as Dick was getting into the basket. And I remember the commentary from the young Lance Corporal, I think it was Mike Aldridge in the back, talking about, "Man, this guy in the blue airplane just plugged right in. The other dude, he's having a hard time getting into the basket." And so after multiple tries, he finally got in, got his gas, and then they took the airplanes up to 50,000 feet and did their mission. Then we met them again, gave them gas, and then they peeled off and went back to Barber's Point, and we went back to our airport, and we landed. Dick gets done gassing, and imagine a C-130 is a really big airplane, right? He pulls up adjacent to the right wing, right directly off my right side, and then he kind of slides down very, 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 very close to the number 4 prop, which scared the living crap out of my buddy Paul Gomez. And he's like, "Holy shit, tell that guy to back off." And I'm like, "Hey, Dick, is that you?" And he goes, "Yeah. Hey, they're wondering if you could just back off, get over a little bit by the wingtip." And he goes, "Oh, yeah, okay, no problem." And he backs off, and he's planted right there. I mean, just perfect formation. And he's looking at me, flying perfect formation. And he says, "Hey, is that you, Taco?" And I go, "Yeah, it's me." And he said, "Hey, I thought you wanted to go fly with me in the back seat." "Dude, yes, I did. I do. I do. I want to go fly." And he says, "Okay, be at the airport 2 hours prior to the brief, and we'll load you up in the back of the F-4. Bring another Marine with you if you have an extra one, and we'll put him in the other airplane." I'm like, "Dude, I am on it. Great." Well, since I did this and I lost and I had to fly the first day, Larry had to fly on Thursday. Harry Larry was like, "Crap," because he's senior to me and he wanted to go so bad, but I already flew, so he had to fill the seat. I got to go fly. Well, now it's down to who do I take and pick out of the crew for the other airplane, and have a picture. It's not a very good picture of all of us sitting there outside the plane, but there was a there was a corporal named, I'll say it, because I never talked to the guy in 30 years, Armstrong, who, let's just say, he was very overly aggressive about how nobody else is getting in the back of that other airplane except for me. Do you hear me, sir? I got that seat. And I'm like, you're kind of a dick. He was a dick. Let's just face it. He was a dick. And I said, all right, yeah, whatever. Well, I really liked this young guy named Mike Aldridge. He was a hard worker, you know, did whatever needed to be done on the crew, the hardest junior guy, doing lion's share of everything. And Armstrong would make him just work his butt off, where poor Mike, was sweating back there just doing everything. So I wanted to take this guy, Mike, with me on the left side. This is over at USS Arizona. Young Mitch, young Mike. He was a Lance Corporal at the time, sharp as hell. And what I did was I pulled him aside after we left, and I told Armstrong to be down out the front of the hotel at a certain time, knowing that he would show up right at that minute. And I told Aldridge to be down there like 30 minutes prior. He came down 30 minutes early. I grabbed him, put him in the rental car, and we drove over to the airport. So needless to say, we got into the jet. Here we are. They had questions. They said, who do you want to fly with? And I go, do you guys keep the same airplane? And he says, yeah, we fly the same airplane. I said, I want to fly whoever flies the blue airplane because it matches my eyes, right? What I didn't want to say was whoever flies the white airplane sucks, and I don't trust that guy to get the gas. I want to fly with the guy that can aerial or fuel better. So I ended up with Dick, and poor Mike got with Duke. They survived, of course. They did fine, but it was funny. So we taxi out, and now the F-4 is loud. It's big. We get seated in the back. I've got my camera. I've got all this stuff. The canopy comes down. AC worked really well. It was a nice day in Hawaii, so I mean, it wasn't overly hot or anything. And we get out onto the runway and we do a section takeoff. Now, when two F-4s are together and they punch those J79s and you rotate, I don't know how many thousands of pounds of thrust those things have, but it throws you in the back of the seat. And instantly, I had a video camera back then, single, a lot of money. I had a slim cam VHS. And if you guys don't know what that is, the body of the camera could sit here, and then the eyepiece where you could see stuff was here. So basically, anything filming like this, I could film really easy. Couldn't film behind me because I couldn't see. But I was filming the takeoff, and then I put it down. I grabbed my camera, took some nice shots of it, and this is actually climbing up to the up to our KC-130 to refuel. So you see the fixed probe, and then you also see the missile that they were shooting. And here's a photograph of coming up to the C-130. You can see it's 85 feet. I think it's 85 feet of hose with a 27-inch diameter basket. The airplane will pull up, plug into that basket, and then the engineer starts pumping gas to the aircraft. So you can refuel two jets at the same time. And we were doing that. We plugged in, we got our gas. So now we've got a full load of gas because it's a slick airplane. All they have is the internal gas and that big ass missile. We climb up to 50,000 feet as the profile. And we're doing about Mach 1.3, 1.2, 1.3. Now, for those of you that want to know, what's it like to fly the speed of sound? Just like this. The only thing that tells you you're flying the speed of sound is a little needle. That's it. You've got no sensation of speed at all. The engines are loud. The being so high, though, it's forced oxygen. That was the hardest and weirdest deal. The oxygen mask you're wearing, it's 100% forced oxygen. So it's real hard to breathe having this forced O2 in your mouth and talk, but you could do it. It's just, to me, I found that difficult. Now, I'm a C-130 guy who never goes above 25,000 feet. I think the highest I'd ever been in a C-130 is about 28 because the damn things leaked like a sieve, couldn't hold pressurization because they're so old. So we're up there doing this. We launched the drone. We're on opposite hittings, the two F-4s, and then you watch that missile shoot and then climb up into the, you know, sky. Now here's where it was weird. We do a 180 to get away from each other, and as we're climbing or doing the turn, he pulls back a little bit on the stick, and all of a sudden we're at 53,000. And I'm looking at the altimeter, and I'm like, wow, we're really high. 53,000. I'm doing the mental math in my mind about how many miles up in the atmosphere. And that's about the time we're sitting there cruising along, and then we level out. Dick's helmet is looking straight up like this. I can just see the back of his helmet, in front of me. And his helmet is up doing this, and he's just looking up, and his helmet's going back and forth. And I'm thinking, what is this guy doing? And then I look up, and I'm like, holy cow. It's no longer blue. It was black at that altitude. Like the sky was black. And when you look down, big giant cumulus clouds that you might see across the ocean, they just look like little tiny cotton balls. And I'm like, wow, how high are we that we would see almost black sky? I mean, that's kind of strange. And then out of the blue, Dick goes, hey, Taco, if we lose an engine or something happens, don't worry about ejecting. Why is that, Dick? And he goes, because we'll be dead. Wait, what are you talking about? He goes, uh, above 50,000 feet, you have to wear a pressure suit because the oxygen's so thin that if you lose pressurization, like full depress, your blood would expand so rapidly that it'll boil. I'm like, what? How much longer are we going to be up here? And he goes, oh, just for a couple more minutes. We just don't want to go down lower in case they shoot at us or whatever. And so I pulled my glove off because all I could remember from the pressure chamber when you go up in the pressure chamber is that you take your mask off, you get loopy like really fast at that altitude, 40,000 feet. We call them 40,000 foot cheek rolls because your oxygen's expanding. There's two ways out, right? Burp or fart. Hopefully you don't have anything in between your farts. And so I take my gloves off and I'm looking at my fingernails to see if I get the blue, we're getting hypoxic or any signs of that stuff, right? Not, not even knowing what I'm thinking because I'm just an idiot. And about the time that I'm kind of getting worried that we're going to be up there for a while, and I'm flying in a 1960 something F-4D Phantom, had a stick in the back. He just gently lowers the nose, and we're doing 1.3 Mach as we descend. And then we end up meeting up, get vectors, and we meet up with Duke. And then we go back and we find our C-130 and refuel off of that again. And then the ship calls us. So if anybody ever served on the USS Shiloh, I implore you, I'm asking anybody that was on that ship in December of 1992, around the 15th when we were doing this, if you guys have any video of us buzzing the ship, I would die to have that. I really would love to have a video of that. But anyway, we get gas. We're flying back, and the ship calls up and goes, "Hey, they're wondering if you would do a flyby." And Dick goes, "Sure. What's the hard deck?" And the guy goes, "Yeah, if you could do a flyby, pass over the front of the ship, then come back around, um, hit the back of the ship, and then roll vertical midship." And he goes, "Roger that." And they go, "Yeah, altimeter's 3012, hard deck's whitecaps." So we come down and we are right over the ocean, skimming along the ocean at I don't know how fast. And I look over to my right and Duke is flying formation off of us. But there's like a rooster tail coming off the back of his F-4 on the ocean. That's how low we were. And then I see the ship off the left, and Dick pulls up and he basically crosses the front of the ship about level with the front of the ship off the bow. And then he turns left and we do a formation up high, a yo-yo, and then come back down and fly down the back of the ship. Duke's on the right side, we're on the left. As we come down, I'm filming this with my camera. It's very fast with my video camera. We hit midship and Dick goes, 3, 2, 1, burners now. And we roll vertical doing aileron rolls up to 35,000 feet. And the G's that I pulled grayed me out. Like I'm videoing, and all I remember was like, oh, hook, hook, hook. And everything just whoop, grays out on me. And then he levels off, and it was like, whoa, that was fun. And hey, you want to fly back to Hawaii? And I'm like, yeah, sure. So I put the camera away and I'm flying, and he's like, whoa, 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 big boy. I didn't realize I was already over the speed of sound. Like I said, you don't really know unless you're looking at the needle because there's no sensation. So I fly back, pull the power back, and then fly back to Barber's Point, and then he takes over, and then we land and we go to this thing called the Monkey Bar. Literally, it's a bar with a big giant glass showcase full of monkeys, little monkeys, and they're beating the crap out of each other and biting each other and humping each other, and you just drink beer and watch the monkeys have fun. So they took Mike and I out, and we had a couple beers with them there, and then Mike and I drove back. That was a blast. And when I got home right before Christmas, I got this incredible Mach Buster Club certificate. Certifies that Lieutenant Mitch Taco Bell, USMC, is a member in good standing, has exceeded the speed of sound in an F-4D Phantom. 10 December of 1992, Dick Lawyer, pilot. And this is part of Tri-Corps Flight Systems. So that was really cool. And I don't have the letter. He wrote a letter for us that talks about, hey, I hope you guys, we flew back and gassed off of a KC-10. It was a 5-hour flight back to the Mojave Desert. And we did that, and it was just really cool. So now, as Paul Harvey would say, and now for the rest of the story. Years go by. That was in 92. No such thing as Google, right? I lose track of Dick. And I go get on Google, and I Google Richard, because I remember it was Richard Lawyer, Dick for short. Richard Lawyer, USAF F-4. And all of a sudden his obituary came up. I'm like, oh man, he passed away. The obituary, Richard Earl Dick Lawyer, was a United States Air Force astronaut, test pilot, and combat veteran. And he trained for the MOL program, which is the Manned Orbital Laboratory. But it was canceled before any of these guys could go fly it. But the story behind it is the cool thing. He died in 2005, so I can't remember what year I had read about the MOL program got declassified, but they were cleaning out bunkers at Cape Canaveral, and they opened up this old bunker, and they found an entire suite of Gemini spacesuits with the guy's name sewn on the spacesuits. And they're like, who the hell is this guy? Lawyer and this other guy and this other. Who are these guys? Because they knew who all the Gemini pilots were. And they found the records. They found all this stuff that was associated with that MOL program that was secret. It had been locked away in a bunker for years. Well, they tracked him down. And it reminds me of Space Cowboys, where the NASA guys show up to talk about, the guidance system in this Russian satellite system that Clint Eastwood had designed. But they called him up and they go, hey, Colonel Lawyer, we found your spacesuit. It's a Gemini spacesuit. We're wondering what the hell, what was this about? And he goes, I'm sorry, I don't know what you're talking about. And they're like, yeah, well, we found your records. You're the same guy. We got your records and stuff. You were part of this program. He goes, sorry, gents, don't know what you're talking about. And so they told him, hey, sir, it's been declassified. He says, well, fax me a copy of the declassification. Let me see. And so they faxed him And he goes, yeah, I was part of that program. And as far as I have read, his family never knew about it. So imagine being you were part of a secret program, and the whole idea in the 60s was that they would launch a Gemini capsule up over into outer space with a giant camera built into it. So they could fly over Russia, Cuba, whatever they wanted, and they could shoot these high def photographs of whatever area they wanted. And then the capsule comes, splashes down. They pick it up, it has all the film and whatever they needed. So it could be an instantaneous, hey, launch these guys, go into outer space, go take the reconnaissance and come back, that the SR-71 or the U-2 couldn't get. So Lockheed or somebody came out with this big giant satellite that they sold to the government, said, hey, look, not only can we put a bigger camera system in it, but we could have, a million rolls of film, high def film, that after the photographs are taken, these things will poop out and land down in the ocean with a big parachute. And a C-130 with these pincers on the front could intercept the parachute as it fell into the ocean, capture it, reel it back into the airplane, which you probably saw in the old movie back with John Wayne, Special Forces movie, Green Berets. And they would do that to capture a guy, put a balloon up with a tether, and C-130 would pick him up. Same concept. Well, when they came out with that, those poor bastards never got to go into outer space. Now, looking back and reflecting on our flight together, could you imagine Dick Lawyer, astronaut who never got to go into outer space, but trained everything that they did to those guys back in the day? And if you've ever watched The Right Stuff, you know what I'm talking about. He's sitting there and he's just sitting there staring up there into outer space going, I could have been there. That could have been me. I could have been up there. I was so close. And now it makes total, absolute sense why we stayed up there a lot longer than we needed to. He was an astronaut who never got to go fulfill a mission. So, like Paul Harvey would say, and now for the rest of the story. So, if you are interested in the MOL program, I want you to Google Dick Lawyer, Richard E. Lawyer, and it will tell you all about it. And you can actually check it out and see what I'm talking about. So it's the MOL program, Richard E. Lawyer, F-4 pilot, Vietnam veteran, 1,000-hour combat missions, and just incredible guy. But that is my story about flying in the back of an F-4 at the speed of sound on the edge of, to me, space, because the highest I've ever gone as civilian commercial airliners, 40,000 feet. I don't really like going that high just because of the radiation and things that are involved with going that high. But that's my story. I hope you enjoyed Tall Tales with Taco. Share it with your friends. This is just a hobby. It's not for profit. I don't put videos on these, so enjoy it. Tell your friends, subscribe. And until I see you guys next time, maybe I'll tell you about flies in Afghanistan and eating some goat that we probably shouldn't have. That's a good story. Maybe I'll tell you that. If you have any questions or if you have any stories that you want to throw up there, send them in the comments and I'll tell you a story or I'll find out something. Until then, you guys take care. Adios. Hasta luego. Auf Wiedersehen. Tschüss. Sheshini. Au revoir. Dominigato gozaimasu. Tando shindi kudasai. Ciao. Rivedici. Tashikor. Assalamu alaikum. Mahala. Do widzenia. Das vidania.